Welcome to Coast Creatives, a podcast for and about working professional artists within the entertainment industry. I'm Joe Funk, and along with my co-host, Torin Cavens Flores, we interview actors, directors, photographers, writers, and many, many more. This episode's guest is Anthony Mack, a drone pilot located in Atlanta, Georgia. Anthony talks about working in the camera department on various film and TV projects, his love for flying drones, and how to get started in FPV piloting. Let's dive in. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing amazing. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. We're here with Anthony, who is a drone pilot, an AC, anything in the camera department, DP, director. What don't you do?
Sound.
Okay.
And editing.
We won't ask you anything about sound today. So you've primarily lived within the world of camera. Mm-hmm. Tell us, how did you get started within that? Where did this interest begin for you?
Well, it actually began when someone handed me a camera. I never knew that, even though I'd watched movies and TV shows my whole life growing up, I never knew that you could actually do it for a living. And when, back in the day, I had a bunch of friends that were heavy into skateboard, and they got me into skateboard, and we actually got semi-decent, good enough to where we could make skate videos. Me being a newbie, still learning.
Yeah.
I didn't really know all the tricks, so they just handed me the camera and said, hey, here, film me doing this trick. And I was like, all right, cool. Whatever, just press this button. All right, cool. Mm-hmm. Did that a few times. Took it back. This is back in the days when it was still mini DV tape. No HD, no Blu-ray, nothing like that. So take it back to the computer. We record it into the computer, cut it all together, make a VHS skate videotape. And just through that whole process, I was like, this is, we took something that essentially wasn't there, made something, and put it out to the world.
Yeah.
And that was my first instance of doing that. And I was like, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool, yeah.
What's really interesting about that is we've done a couple of these episodes, and there a lot of times it's been people around our age, like mid-30s or so. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about where this interest came from, a lot of them have said the same thing that you have, where I didn't know this was a career. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the internet growing up. Exactly. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have iMovie. We didn't know, we knew what movies were and what TV was, mm-hmm. but we never realized that could be a job.
Yeah, exactly.
When did that actually click for you, where you're like, oh, I could actually make a living for doing this?
Well, I had graduated high school, and I was just trying to find out what I wanted to do. And while I was in high school, I actually was heavy into video games. And so I actually wanted to be a video game designer.
Cool.
In the beginning. But through the course of high school and getting out, I actually went to school, community college right out of high school, to start learning how to program and all that. But over that time, I kind of lost the passion for video games. I would still like to play them, but not as much as I did back in the day. And then I was like, well, if I don't like this, I still feel that I'm a creative. I like to take things that aren't there and make them into something that is there. I was like, well, what could I do creatively that would sustain me? And I was like, well, I do remember that I did this thing back in the day where we made skate videos. I was like, well, let me explore that and see if I could actually turn a video career or video making into a career.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started researching schools and, what can I do this, or do I just go straight into the industry, or how? Because I had no clue how to get started in filmmaking. Had no family prior to me that worked in the industry, so I was completely out on my own trying to find out.
And you are born and raised in Georgia?
I was born in Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, we moved to Georgia in '96.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, I've kind of been in and out since then. But
Yeah.
So,
And you were just extremely fortunate that this was the career path that you wanted to go, and then the industry moved here for you.
well, that's funny because I basically have either lived in or been to every southern state there is, save Louisiana. And once I got into the film industry, I was like, oh my God, this is my ticket out of the South. And then what happens?
Sorry.
And all the work moved here.
Exactly. I'll find that funny.
When I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
You haven't been to Louisiana?
Nope.
Really?
Nope.
Haven't even visited?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I want to do it. Maybe I should try that next year. See, but yeah.
Manifest it. Put it
Yeah.
put it on the list.
Oh,
have
yeah.
a job that'll take you to New Orleans.
Yep. Exactly.
So when you did go to, you studied at the Savannah College of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. And what year did you start there? Was that 2011?
It was 2012, actually. So I started up here in the Atlanta campus first. Did that for 2 quarters. They're quarters there, not semesters. But then they told me if I wanted to continue the filmmaking side, I would have to move down to Savannah because back in 2012, Atlanta wasn't anything for film, and they had all the film courses down there. Up here, it was more like television producing, news, broadcasting, and all that stuff. And to get the actual like film classes, I would have to go down to the Savannah campus. Yeah.
This is really fascinating to me. I want to just what is your opinion on the industry here? Because you were here before.
Yeah,
the film industry was here. Is this wild to you that?
Yeah, it is wild.
It's all here now.
I never thought that Georgia would be number one in the world for filmmaking.
Yeah, no one did.
Yeah.
I would not have predicted that I would be living here either.
Yeah,
but
that is crazy. And I thought that there were a lot of people here before film moved here, and now it's just constant people. Still moving in. Oh, yeah, Georgia's no more for film. I'm going to move in. It's like, dude, we are well oversaturated with people.
Have you learned to love it? You joked about how like that would be your way out of the South. Mm-hmm. Have you learned to really love it? Do you have a desire to go anywhere else? Are you sticking around?
I still would like to get out. I've learned to love it because it's got me opportunities being here that I think that it would have been a little bit harder to do if I were to move to like LA or New York or something. Yeah. So I'm starting to learn to love it, but I still want to branch out. Like this year, apparently this was my year for doing like out of state stuff. I've been to like 2 or 3 different states this year doing jobs. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that keeps.
Just not Louisiana.
Yeah, exactly.
Not yet. You'll get there. You'll get there. So you go to school in Savannah. 1 year here, and then how many years in Savannah?
So I was the beginning of. Oh well, no. So I went down to Savannah fall 2012.
Okay.
So I spent the first half of the year up here in Atlanta, and then from fall 2012 till about fall 2015.
Okay.
Down in Savannah.
And do they have concentrations within SCAD? I am a directing track. I am a DP track.
They do, but you don't actually do that, which is kind of weird. We'll talk about SCAD here in a minute, but they have that concentration, but it's not until you hit your senior year. And then you basically like decide, okay, this is what I want to focus on, and then you go down that track, and that actually informs the classes that you take. But yeah, from your freshman to your junior year, you're kind of all over the place. So you're learning. You learn about sound. You learn about editing. You learn about shooting. All that stuff.
It's all very, very important.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you got to your final year, what did you choose as your concentration?
Camera.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. And how was the college education for you? I shoot headshots for people within the industry, and I hear a lot of should I go get a college degree? Or people have the undergraduate and they say, well, maybe getting even a graduate degree on top of that will take me to the next level. And there's this big debate of, should you be getting these degrees, or should you just jump into the field because you can learn a lot of it on the job and you can start making connections and you'll be several years ahead of the people that chose to go to school. Going through it and now working professionally, where do you fall on this debate?
Well, going through it myself, like I said, I was one that had no one in my family, no connections at all to the industry. And so how I see it is that if you're coming that route, film school would be good for you because you can go there, you can make the connections, you can find like-minded people, say, hey, let's do this, let's do that project, and get it out to the world and start getting people to see your stuff. But if you already have someone in the industry that could get you on a set or could get you in the booth or whatever, I would say go that way.
Okay.
Because you don't necessarily need that foundation of making connections.
Sure.
You already have that already, and then you can just kind of build on that.
So your connections have paid off for you. Do you still keep in touch with people that you graduated with at SCAD?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I do. Yep, they've got me jobs here
Okay.
and there. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
That connection. Yep.
It
There
paid
you
off.
go.
So
Exactly.
that's one one
Exactly.
tally
That's one-
for go to school.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What-
Go to school if you don't have the prior connections already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I always tell people as well is, well, think about what you want to do and then also factor in how much money you're going to be in debt because you're going to school.
Yeah. And that was another thing. So I went to school debt-free kind of because I did the military beforehand.
Yes.
So
okay.
they paid
So
for
that's a big
That's
difference.
a big thing. Yeah.
I tell people,
Yeah.
it's like, no matter what, don't walk away from film school with $100,000 in debt.
Oh, no. That is definitely not worth it at that point.
Spend a quarter of that
Yeah.
and buy your own gear and start making your own projects, and your life will become your own film school.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Well, yeah, that's an important thing to bring up.
Yeah.
And then, because especially when you get to some of these really big schools, a lot of them, the very, very small admittance rate, and they don't give scholarships.
Well,
like a lot of the USC, AFI, Chapman University, NYU. If you get in, you're just lucky enough to get in, so they don't have to offer you anything.
Exactly.
So, case by case basis, I guess.
Yeah, and to that point, I said I was going to talk about SCAD for a second.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily a film school.
Yeah.
To me, I consider them a jack of all trades school. They do a little bit of everything. How well they do those things is up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
But on the film side, I felt that I did. Yes, I came away with knowing gear because they will have the latest and greatest gear all the time, but not necessarily the fundamentals behind actually using the gear, the theory of why you would use this lens over this lens. Yes, we would dabble in stuff like that, but not like you would get at an actual bona fide 100% legit film school where
interesting.
you have people that have worked in the industry for 20, 30 years and now they've come back to teach. You didn't necessarily, you had it a little bit, but it wasn't enough, or it wasn't to my caliber of what I thought a film school would be.
You're saying it was a lot more technical based and not so much how to actually tell a story.
Yeah. There were a few and far between classes and professors that would do that.
Yeah. All of these colleges in Georgia would be smart to start investing in film programs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I shot with someone recently that she's a high school senior, and she toured University of Georgia, UGA, and she's like, yeah, they're building a really big film program there. That makes sense. They should. Because like these students shouldn't, these people shouldn't have to go to other states to learn this stuff. Exactly. If we have such an infrastructure here now.
Yeah, exactly. If we want to be number one in the world for film, we got to start catering to that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And now that you have worked professionally, how much of it is when you first start out in this industry, you hear a lot of network. It's who you know. That's what's going to take you to the next level. Have you found that to be true in your career?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Didn't even think about it.
Well, no, because how I actually got started working on sets is because of that network. Going back to the school and networking going to school because I had no prior network. One of the people that I went to school with actually got me a job at a rental house here in Atlanta. And that's how I actually got to network with all the crews that were actually doing shows. And with that knowledge and with those connections, I actually got onto the bigger sets.
Yeah.
That way. So yeah, it's definitely networking. I mean, if you have a good idea and you can put it together and get it out to people so they can see it, then go for it. But that is few and far between, I think, because everyone and their mom now has an iPhone that can shoot 4K movies. So
my mom does not have an iPhone.
We just lost one audience member.
There she goes.
And log off, unsubscribe.
But it's the fact that filmmaking today is now so much more accessible than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
That it's going and making your own thing and putting it out there is still very doable, but you got to wade through a whole lot of stuff before you can.
That's another layer to add on to the school versus no school debate is you could always go to YouTube University for free.
Yep.
And learn 90% of what you need to know through that for free and start earliest. I'm so envious of people nowadays that are just getting their start. Kids that like have access to all of this stuff.
Yes and no, because like I said, I was part of the generation that grew up right before the internet became a thing. So I still know what it was to do things like
go outside.
Go outside and actually do things.
It was nice. It was the wild, wild west for us growing up.
It's crazy to think about. I've been acting for 25, 26 years. And, there's a point in time, I guess it was early 2000s, whatever. Anyway, I had a group of filmmaker friends, whatever. We wanted to make films and we were like, well, how are we going to do with this? And a sentence that we said was, well, like this YouTube thing looks like, we might be able to post videos on there. Oh my God. It was like just aging myself in my head. It was part of a generation when we were like, YouTube might be something.
Yeah. If I want to feel particularly old when I'm doing my photo shoots, my headshot shoots, if I have someone that's born in the early 2000s, I like to ask them if they know what Y2K is. And they don't. None of them. A few of them are like, I think it's a band. I'm not sure what that is. So as collectively, as a society, we forgot about Y2K fast.
Oh, yes, we did.
That panic did not last at all. No cultural impact of that.
And
oh, my God. It was
you talking about skateboarding, Anthony, and then you talking about the photo shoots. You remember that girl we had? She comes in, she's like wearing like Jinko jeans and stuff like that. Yeah? And she's like, she's really young. And I was like, I like your style. And she's like, yeah, I like to dress like vintage, like 90s. And I'm just like, oh,
vintage?
No.
The 90s is vintage now?
Yeah, it's wild. It's like a fashion choice.
It's so crazy how time just moves on, but yet stays the same. To me, the 80s was still 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still right there in the back of my head, and I will come on this podcast like I go everywhere else and say the 80s is the best decade America has ever seen because it is the year 2022, and we are still rocking 80s music to this day.
I know. So after graduating, what were the projects that you started working on, and what role did you have on those productions?
Well, the very first, I guess, project outside of school that I could say was a professional thing. I actually did it while I was still in school. I was a PA for this little indie movie, and I told them I wanted to do camera or whatever. So I helped out with that a little bit, but I was kind of just all around doing stuff here and there. After that, I started making my own. I don't know if they were my own films, but I was helping out on other people's little indie films. We would do the Kodak 100-foot challenge.
Yeah. I did one of those.
That's always cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So you continue working your way up, and what at this point, what is the end goal for you? Do you want to be a cinematographer?
Right now, the end goal, because it's morphed over the years from starting film school to now. But the end goal now is an aerial cinematographer, aerial DP. Would be what it is. So
why now at this point are you more interested in aerial cinematography, aerial photography? How did you get into drones?
Well, I got my first drone. I think it was February 2018. But to give you a little backstory before that, I've always had a love for flying in general. My dad was in the Air Force for 20 plus years. I did the Air Force for 4 years myself. But one of the earliest memories I have as a kid is when we took a vacation one summer to St. Croix. We would basically take something called a hop. So you could get on, if you had a military plane going to a certain destination that you wanted to go to, you could, and you're a military member, you could jump on that plane if they had extra seats or whatever available, so you wouldn't have to take a commercial plane. And so we did that going to St. Croix. And the base that my dad worked at, they all have different airframes that they work with. So that base had C-130Js, I believe it was. So they're the big tankers with the 4 propellers on the wings, and basically the whole front is like a glass globe where you can see the floor and the top and all that stuff. Well, I'm about, oh my God, I can't remember. I don't know if I was 7 or 8, maybe 6. Well, no, I had to have been 7 or 8, I think. And so the inside of a C-130, it's a cargo jet. So it's just all hollowed out. And they would put in, like, the seats or whatever for people to have. But the majority of it's hollowed out. Well, we're getting ready to taxi or whatever. And me and a bunch of other kids just running around because other military families are doing the same thing. And my dad, I guess, apparently knows, or his friends was one of the pilots or whatever on the plane. And I don't know if I asked him or if he just had the suggestion himself, but I basically got to go into the cockpit while the plane was taxiing down the runway and as it took off. Now, I'm a 7-year-old kid in the cockpit of a C-130J, which is basically a glass ball, and I see the ground leave us as we take off, and that image has just stuck with me my whole life. It's resonated, and ever since then, every time I fly, I have to have a window seat. And my head is outside the window as we're taxiing, taking off in the air. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So that's one of my earliest memories as a kid, just being in the cockpit, and you just imagine you're 7 years old and you just like see the ground leave you and you're just like flying in the sky.
That's great. That's great. And now as an adult, you've found ways to meld these passions together. You're artistic, and then your love of flying. Did you ever have any aspirations to become a pilot?
Not necessarily until I actually got my Part 107 for commercial drone work, because basically getting your Part 107 is not teaching you how to fly drones, because there's all kind of other resources to learn how to fly your actual drone, but the Part 107 is actually basically teaching you how to become a pilot.
Yeah.
It's the very beginning stages of how to read weather patterns and clouds and knowing runway signs and all that stuff. So I was like, I may think about doing this, not like as a profession, but to take it a little bit further.
I know a lot of people that do get their Part 107, and then they go on to get their certifications for smaller two passenger planes and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting explaining this test to people, because there is a lot on that initial test that you take that has nothing to do with drones.
With drones at all. Yep, exactly. Nothing to do with drones.
And I think, honestly, the test has changed since we took it.
Oh, probably, yeah.
I don't think they even test them on that stuff anymore. And it's all online. You don't have to go in anymore.
Oh, really? You don't have to go in?
No.
Oh, man. Because I know they changed the recurrent test to where, because you would have to, like, every 2 years, I think you'd have to go in and pay to take the recurrent test. But now you don't have to pay for that. And that's online, too. It's just like a little quiz thing or whatever. And
just like a refresher, which honestly makes more sense. Yeah. Torrin, you remember me studying for my Part 107 in LA.
I was just going to bring that up. Like, you were studying for, like, I don't know, it was like 6 months or something. Yeah. You had all the study books and stuff, and I won't tell the Directors Guild where you worked, but you were studying at work.
Yeah. I was, yeah.
It's funny because I guess you took the books. I actually took like an online course for the Part 107. And that actually helped. I mean, I passed it the first time at like an 80-something.
Yeah, I bought one of these study books off of Amazon. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like an official FAA funded book or anything, sponsored book, but like half of the questions were verbatim what they were on the test.
Oh yeah,
like the exact same questions and the exact same sectional charts. And I was like, okay, I already know all. I already know all of these answers. Mm-hmm. But the lesson is you have to study.
Yeah,
for the Part 107.
You definitely have to study.
I would not. Please study.
Yeah, please. Yeah, you're spending money to take this test, so take it one time and don't have to pay for it again, please.
You're right, and always keep in mind that it's a matter of safety, and there is a lot of very important information on this test. Mm-hmm. Most importantly is understanding airspace and where you can and cannot be flying a drone, and how to get authorization to fly in certain locations. Mm-hmm. All of this you definitely need to learn. Yeah. You need to be up to date on that. Yeah. Nighttime conditions, things like that.
Yeah. And the thing is that all that is still ever evolving and ever changing, because drones, like, they literally blew up out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Like, drones have only been around for like since the mid 2010s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're still trying to figure out what the best way to implement.
Yeah, they're always changing. They're always evolving, which perfectly leads into our next section is talking about FPV drones and some of the work that you are getting into, because the landscape for FPV drones is evolving very, very quickly, but it still is definitely the Wild West of drone flying.
It is definitely Wild West.
There's a lot of pilots like myself that we haven't touched an FPV drone, and most of us are not even that interested in it. And then there's the extremely bold people like you. They're like, absolutely, and I'm okay crashing this into the ground, and we're going to see what happens here. I can rebuild it.
Well, it's funny because that was like how I got into FPV. Is I was like you. I was like, I don't want to learn. I like to fly. I don't want to learn how to build. Well, that's another thing. I do have like a mechanical background. I like to tinker with stuff. I was the one always taking the remote apart as a kid, putting the bed together. So I had that inclination, but I didn't want to apply that to drones per se. I was like, I just want to get up and fly. I just want to fly. I like flying.
Yeah.
And also, I thought, and I guess it was this way back in the day, your barrier of entry to get into FPV was you had to build your own drone. And I was like, I do not want to have to do that. Like, I just want to get it, and I just want to fly and get cool content. So I just stuck with the DJI forever. And then when DJI came out with their FPV drone, I was like, okay, I don't have to build it. It's all piecemeal together. Got the goggles, the radio. I don't have to worry about buying certain batteries and this. Everything is there to go, so I can just get it and fly like I want to. So I got it. I flew it. I flew it like a normal DJI drone for the first maybe 5 or 6 weeks that I had it, because they're like, no, don't get it and throw it in the manual because you're just going to crash it. And so it came with virtual software, so you could put the goggles on and you could virtually fly it manually in FPV, so you can get the gist of it, because the controller is all different. You have your left stick. Well, we go into those technicals later, but your left stick doesn't operate like a regular DJI left stick. It's completely down. There's no spring in it and all that, so it works as a throttle and not like a elevator or whatever. So it took me a couple weeks in the simulator to get used to doing it, and then I took baby steps with the actual FPV flying it. And okay, so now I'm not going to go full manual, but I'm going to let it go so I can roll a little bit more than staying level. And then I can roll a little bit more and then staying level. And then, okay, finally a full roll, and oh my God, okay. And then backflip, oh my God. And then you keep doing, and you keep doing this repetition, and then you get good. And it's like, okay, now I can go into full manual. And then you take it and you flip it in full manual and you go. And then once you start going, and for me, going full manual up, and you make that first bank and that first flip, and you're like, oh my God, this is like freedom. It's like you're a bird. I'm completely just zooming through the air, and it's not like these other DJI drones that I've flown that are just like flat and level, and they're good because you're more focused on getting a shot when you're doing something like an Inspire 2 or an Air 2S. But with the DJI FPV, it was more so, I'm not necessarily worried about a shot. I'm just flying. This is the experience of flying that I had way back when I was a kid. And playing take off. I'm like, this is fun. Oh my God, this is so much fun. And so then once I found that, I was like, well, let me look more into other FPVs, because I had got that, and then I started looking at some FPV communities on Facebook and this, that, and the other. And like, oh, the DJI FPV sucks. It flies like a potato and all this, that, and the other. There's so many better drones out there. And I'm like, well, to me, this flies pretty good because this is the only FPV drone that I've ever had. So I'm like, well, let me see what the other things are. And so then I start looking, and it's like, well, I can actually, the industry has kind of matured a little bit where I can actually get what they call a bind and fly FPV drone that's already put together. It's pretty much programmed, all that. You just got to get a controller. I've already got the goggles, and I can just take off and see how an actual FPV drone operates. And I got my first one of them, and after that, I was hooked. And then it sucked me in. And then once I had my first crash with the FPV drone, I can't remember what it was. I had to change a motor or something, soldering and all that. And I learned that I'm mechanically inclined. This is not really that hard of a thing to fix. It's all pretty much really simple electronics. It can be like, you can teach a high school course with this, and it's not that hard. So I was like, okay, that's not really, I don't know why I was so like so apprehensive when I pretty much know how to do this. I just got to do it. And after that, it was just, like I said, it was full bore at that point.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This is absolutely backtracking, but could you just explain to the audience who might not be in the loop with this, what is an FPV drone, and how is that different from flying like a DJI Phantom, Inspire, or anything like that?
Okay, so FPV stands for first person view. So basically how normal DJI drones operate is you have a phone or a controller that has a screen on it. The drone has a camera on it. You take it up and you fly it completely aided with GPS. You're doing lateral movements, forward, back, side to side, up, down. You can control on some of the bigger drones. You can actually control the gimbal on the camera to get like tilts and angle shots and all that. But for the most part, it's lateral movements. Well, with an FPV drone, it's more, you still have a controller, but the screen you're looking at is actually like a VR set that you put on your head. And the camera is actually in front of the drone like you're in the pilot seat of the drone.
Yeah.
And this drone it can be GPS aided, not to the extent that DJI has. Well, sort of, but not to the full extent that DJI has. But more so using an FPV drone because you can use it completely manual. Means you can go completely inverted, upside down. You can do flips and rolls and yaw spins, and you can fly fast through small gaps if you got a small drone and all that. So it started out as just it basically, I tell people it's basically like an RC car in the sky.
Yeah.
If you grew up with RC cars, which I had a couple myself, but yeah, it's basically like an RC car in the sky. And I think some of the first flight controllers, which is like the brains of the drone, I think they actually were parts of like a Wii controller that someone disassembled and put as like the gyroscope.
So
you would
amazing.
know, so you would know how level the drone was. Yeah, it was like parts of a Wii controller that they took apart.
It makes sense.
They said this hobby, now that is grown up to be what it is, was completely DIY back in the day, like completely DIY, which is why it was such a high barrier of entry because you had to make your own drones and know how to do electronics. But now you have companies that can make the drone for you.
And visually, how for our audience members, how would they be able to tell the difference if they're watching something on YouTube on a film? How would they tell the difference between this is a FPV drone or this is like a standard lift drone that you're describing?
So from the shot, basically, if it's anything that kind of looks like you would get with a helicopter, so it's very static, or it's just like kind of landscaping, like going across the sky, or just kind of like smooth, like moving, I guess you would say. Establishing shots or whatever. That would be more of it like a standard DJI drone. Yeah. FPV is going to be a lot more dynamic. They're going to be flying super fast through gaps. You see all the, I'm sure you've seen, well, I don't know if you have seen the bowling alley.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
The Bryant Lake Bowl.
He like flies
through the bowling alley. Yeah. He's flying through people's legs and following the balls as they go down the lane and all that, going through the hands of people. Yeah, so, FPV shots are typically a lot more dynamic moving than normal DJI. Or I hate saying DJI because there's other drones other than DJI, but then the typical drone shots.
I just want to bring up because it's so wild, like where we are now with this aerial cinematography. Like back in the day, I think there's even like just a small capture of it in the opening credits of The Shining, where they're following the car and everything. You can. Sometimes in movies from back then, you can see the shadow of the helicopter. Because they used to have to get a whole helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. A whole helicopter, a helicopter pilot, the camera operator with the camera. At first,
pack them all in this helicopter.
Exactly.
You watch it now, and it's the opening of The Shining, especially, it's like, it's so shaky. Yeah. Like the camera's moving all over the place. Like this looks so jankety compared to what we can get nowadays.
Yeah. I rewatched it not too long ago, and it's like it is a really good shot though, and it's you understand after what we just said with packing all those people into a helicopter, you understand why you see the shadow and they couldn't really retake the shot because it's just like, you have to pay for the chopper too,
Yep, the gas for the helicopter and everything.
We'll just suspension of disbelief, just leave it in, it's fine. The rest of the movie is going to be awesome. So
Right.
Yep.
So is it boring for you to go back to flying your Inspire now that you're fully into the world of FPV? Does it still give you the same thrill as it used to?
To the boring aspect, no, it's not necessarily boring because again, there are two different tools for two different use case scenarios.
Yeah.
If you I just did a job this past September where I pulled the Inspire 2 out, and it wasn't an FPV, it was Inspire 2 because they just wanted nice establishing shots, some swooping shots and all that stuff that I could have done with the FPV, but it was better to use the Inspire 2.
Okay.
So, it's not boring at all. I still like to get it out and because it is still a very big bird and I still need to do some updates to it, but I don't know if those are ever going to happen.
Well, you got they keep saying the i3.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be here very soon.
Exactly.
So I don't know if you want to keep updating that i2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what would you say to a pilot like me who's used to flying Inspire? And I'm apprehensive because of all of the mechanical aspects of flying FPV and understanding the electronics and replacing parts and things like that. What would you say to make me feel better about jumping into this?
Well, like I said, back in the day, it was truly the Wild Wild West when you're making your own quads, you're crashing, you're rinse and repeat, crash, rinse and repeat, or whatever. Nowadays, there are companies that, like I said, you can build them. They're already built for you. All you have to do is bind your radio. Some of them come already with the radio bound, the goggles, and all that. There are also other companies that if you don't want to repair your own drones, you can actually send them out to get repaired as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And there are other companies that are actually making it to where you don't have to solder at all for certain like flight controllers and motors where you could it's all just plug and play.
I
mean, so if something goes out.
This sounds easy now.
Didn't take much.
But I think what you would agree on here is that even with all of that, you need to take your progress very slow.
Yeah.
And you have to be very patient with this. Yeah. And a lot of that is the types of cameras that you're strapping to this. Like don't buy the top of the line GoPro and strap it onto your first one.
And that's the thing is that you don't and what I'm still learning myself is I usually will take my drones up with the GoPros on them. One, a little more of an FPV purist thing is that when you're flying, it definitely feels different flying with and without a GoPro just because it's weight on the drone. Like with this little Cinelog 25, it's like maybe 200-300 grams with the GoPro on it. It's probably 30-40 grams less without the GoPro, and you feel that difference when you're flying. You don't have to be as much in the throttle to get it off the ground without the GoPro as it is with the GoPro on it. And so just for the feel, the familiarity of flying with this GoPro all the time. And so you get that muscle memory of, okay, I got to go here, I got to go here, I got to go here, as you're moving the sticks to be able to accurately and precisely put the drone where you want it to be at the certain times. But that being said, if you're going to go out and just have fun, flipping through trees and all that stuff, you don't necessarily need to put a GoPro on because 9 times out of 10, you're going to crash. And
9 times out of 10. Woo.
FPV is about, and actually, once I was apprehensive too about my first crash, but then I learned that you think it's a lot because you're looking at it right there.
Yeah.
But it really, when you crash and it's like, okay, and you take the goggles off, I was like, okay, I'm still here. Nothing physically happened to me. It was just the drone just hit a tree or something.
You have to reprogram your brain because if you're coming from being purely an Inspire pilot, the very worst thing you could do is crash that drone. because then that drone is done and
Yeah,
it's game over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's no repair kits for the Inspire 2 out on the market.
No.
But like I said, you definitely once you crash a couple times, and I actually have a friend that I actually also got into FPV. He was like you.
Mm-hmm.
He just had the Mavic and all that, and he was just like flying, and I actually showed him my DJI FPV, and I let him fly it in like the normal mode, not the FPV mode, with the goggles on, and he's like, oh man, this is cool. And so then he didn't get the DJI FPV, he got another actual FPV, and started learning with that, and then he's like hooked now too, and I'm still trying to get him over the fear of crashing, but it's not like you where it's like you need to reprogram. Oh my god, something's happened. It's just him. He's just like, I don't want to have to pay for more parts.
I don't want to do that either.
Exactly. And that's another thing with FPV is that the parts and the quads themselves are really not that expensive to buy. Like this right here was probably, without the GoPro, this was like what, $200-$300.
Yeah.
And that's not that much. But the fact that this is $200-$300, it's like, oh, I can get another one. That's only $200. I can get another one.
Yeah.
And before you know
it's the snowball effect of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I'm also afraid of because I'm a photographer.
I had one drone starting my first year. I think at the end of my first year, I had 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
And now coming up, I think this is the end of my second year being an FPV pilot, flying drones. Well, I've been flying drones since 2018. Yeah, this is the second year being an FPV pilot. I think I now have like 10 or 11. I think
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
I love the pictures that you post on your social media where you lay them out or you hang them up on the wall. It's like that is such a cool, creative use of your wall space.
Yeah.
To be hanging them up like that,
exactly.
and you can see your fleet continue to grow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And as this technology continues to evolve and continues to take storytelling forward into the future, what do you think the next advancements with FPV are going to be?
So FPV or drones in general?
Either. In general, yeah.
Well, in general, well, on the non-creative side, definitely drone deliveries is a thing that like Amazon and Walmart and all that are trying to do, automated deliveries.
Do we need stuff that fast?
It's already really fast.
The thing to me is, like I said, we're kids of the 80s. I grew up where there was no online ordering. If I wanted something, I went to the store, I picked it up off the shelf, I went to the cashier, I paid for it, and that was the transaction, end of that. People nowadays, instant gratification, you got to have everything now. It's like, no, that's not instant gratification. That's just how I grew up.
Yeah.
I went to the store, got what I wanted, paid for it,
yeah,
and that was it. So I'm slowly but surely getting more on board with like online ordering stuff, but I don't know if like I said,
I don't want to be I don't want to be on board with it. But like the other month, my printer ran out of ink, and I had to go to Staples to pick up some new ink because I'd rather go there and support that mega company before I support an even bigger one, and they didn't have the ink that I needed, so I went to another one. They didn't have it. I came home and I ordered it off of Amazon, and it was dropped off 2 hours later.
Oh my god!
At my house, so I was like, I could have saved so much time, but I don't want to always support that.
Yeah,
And so that's on the non-creative side. On the creative side, where do you think the advancements are going to come?
Well, with FPV in specific, it's on the heavy lift side. You're getting, I don't know if it's two tools trying to do the same job, because now you have big center lifter FPVs that can hold Ronin R3s with a full like a Sony A7S3 or whatever.
Yep.
Or you have drones that can hold 2 R3s. So I think with FPV, they're still really trying to figure out where this best fits in. You can make super, super small drones with cameras. Like I said, if you got GoPros that are 10-bit and they keep going up, you can put smaller drones with smaller cameras to get into tighter spaces where you can film shots that weren't doable with other, like I can film through that banister going right through there with a high cinema quality camera nowadays. You couldn't do that 5 years ago. But yeah, creative side, I think, and like I said, it can be either smaller cameras for more intricate shots or the heavy side, which I think is just meeting up with the I2s and the other heavy lift drones that are already out there that can carry Alexas and all that stuff. So
yeah,
I think it's still
excited to see where it goes, because I think that the pilots are also going to get better and better. Mm-hmm. We have just like generations of pilots that grew up playing video games and have that insane eye-hand coordination when it comes to joysticks, and like the drone racing blows my mind. What some of these people can do with these, like the precise movements that they can make, and I'm just excited to see it evolve and follow where it goes. If you could give advice to somebody who's just starting out into flying, what advice would you pass along to them? Pass along to a newbie?
Get an inexpensive drone.
Okay.
Not inexpensive, an inexpensive.
Say that slower. Get an inexpensive drone.
Yes.
To start off with.
They now have a lot of starter drones that are. Is it the DJI Mini that's under 0.55?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it legally does not have to be registered with the FAA to start flying that, because that's a lot of what turns people off. Is I'm going to have to take a course, I'm going to have to register this, there's all this money that I'm dropping just to fly it.
Yeah.
So there are some really good entry level drones that shoot high quality.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're getting smaller drones that shoot better pictures. That it's amazing how fast the technology is moving. Yeah. Even on the FPV side, there's whole kits that you can get that are under $100, $200.
Yeah,
that you can get started with as well. So
don't get me sucked into it. I have enough places I'm dropping money already. And what are you personally excited about in your career in here in 2023? What do you have coming up? Any projects lined up? Anything that you're working on?
Nothing lined up per se right now, but I'm definitely going to start pushing more. Well, me and a couple colleagues are probably going to start doing some spec commercials.
Oh, cool.
With FPV and all that stuff. So
nice.
I'm definitely excited about
updating those reels.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Always fun doing that.
That's one of the tricky things about being a drone pilot and having your reel is like this is footage that is owned by these larger studios, and sometimes getting access to that or the legality of using that footage within your reel is a little hazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So unfortunately, our reels don't always look up to what they actually are in reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about
thank you for
this.
Having me out.
This is a great education for everybody involved. We would definitely love to have you back in the future to talk talk more about this.
And
at the moment,
I can talk for hours about it.
Oh no, I love it. And at the moment, where could listeners see more of your work?
My Instagram is Mack_FPV. The YouTube channel is Anthony? I think Anthony J. Mack. You just type it in YouTube and it'll come up. My website is also anthonyjmack.com. So you can find all the links on.
Just
on
for
that.
the spelling there, it's M-A-C-K.
Yeah, M-A-C-K.
Not
M-A-C.
like the Big Mac.
Well, awesome. Thank you again so much for coming in and talking with us. You have a lot of expertise to share with us. And I love how open you are about also we're all learning as we go with this. It's like this is honestly it's a bit of a never-ending learning curve.
Oh yeah,
you're never really going to get to the point where you have it all figured out. Especially
that's good though. I love learning. I always love learning. Like I never get to the point where you feel like you know it all, because in that point, like, what's the point after that?
Right. You can't get set on that end goal of like, and now I know everything, because new technology is going to continue to be rolled out. There's going to be new things to learn all the time. So get used to it, I guess, is what we're saying to the listeners at home. Well, thank you again so much. I'm excited to see what's coming up for you next, and we'll make sure everybody goes and checks out your work.
All right. Thanks for having me out again.
Of course.
It was fun.
Thank you.